Do you agree with the idea if you read what everybody else is reading, you are going to think what everyone else is thinking? I think almost everything that people read these days is designed for social approval. I know people who have read 100 regurgitated books on evolution and they've never read Darwin. Think of the number of microeconomists out there. I think most of them have read tons of treatises in economics, but haven't read any Adam Smith. At some level, you are doing it for social approval. You are doing it to fit in with the other monkeys. You are fitting to get along with the herd. That's not where the returns are in life. The returns in life are being out of the herd. Social approval is inside the herd. If you want social approval, definitely go read what the herd is reading. It takes a level of contrary to say, look, I'm just going to do my own thing regardless the social outcome. I'll learn anything I think is interesting. Contrarianism. Do you think there's some loss aversion there? Because once you diverge, you are not sure if you are diverging towards a positive outcome or a negative outcome. Absolutely. I think that's why the smartest and the most successful people I know started out as a loser. If you view yourself as a loser and someone who is cast out by society and has no role in normal society, then you will do your own thing and you are much more likely to find a winning path. It helps to start out by saying, I'm never going to be popular. I'm never going to be accepted. I'm already a loser. I'm not going to get what all the other kids have. I'll just go to be happy being me. For self-improvement without self-discipline, update your self-image. Everyone's motivated at something. It just depends on the things. Even the people that we say are unmotivated are suddenly really motivated when they are playing video games. I think motivation is relative, so you just have to find the thing you are into. Grind and sweat, toil and bleed, feast and abase. It's all part of becoming an overnight success. If you had to pass down to your kids one or two principles, what would they be? Number one, read. Read everything you can. And not just the stuff and society tells you is good or even books that I tell you to read. Just read for its own sake. Develop a love for it. Even if you have to read romance novels and paperbacks or comic books, there's no such things as junk. Just read it at all. Eventually, you will guide yourself to the things that you should and want to be reading. Relate to the scale of reading are the skills of mathematics and persuasion. Both skills help you to navigate through the real world. Having a skill of persuasion is important because if you can influence your fellow human beings, you can get a lot done. I think persuasion is an actual skill, so you can learn it. And it's not that hard to do so. Mathematics helps with all the complex and difficult things in life. If you want to make money, if you want to describe, want to science, if you want to understand games theory or politics or economics or investment or computers, all of these things have mathematics at the core. It's a foundational language of nature. Nature speaks in mathematics. Mathematics is us reverse engineering the language of nature, and we have only scratched the surface. The good news is if you don't have to know a lot of math, you just have to know basic statistics, arithmetic, extra statistics. Statistics. You should know statistics and the probability forward and backward and inside out. The hardest thing is not doing what you want. It's knowing what you want. Beware, there are no adults. Sorry, I don't know how to speak adults. Everyone makes it up as they go along. You have to find your own path, picking, choosing, and discarding as you see fit. Figure it out yourself and do it. How have your values changed? When I was younger, I really valued freedom. Freedom was one of my core values. Ironically, it still is. It's probably one of my top 3 values, but it's now a different definition of freedom. My old definition was freedom to do anything I want, freedom to do whatever I feel like, whenever I feel like. Now, the freedom I'm looking for is internal freedom. It's freedom from reaction, freedom from feeling angry, freedom from being sad, freedom from being forced to do something. I'm looking for freedom from internally and externally, whereas before I was looking for freedom too. Advice to my younger self: be exactly who you are. Holding back means staying in bad relationships and bad jobs for years instead of minutes. Freedom from expectations. I don't measure my effectiveness at all. I don't believe in self-measurement. I feel like this is a form of self-discipline, self-punishment, self-conflict. If you hurt other people because they have expectations of you, that's their problem. If they have an agreement with you, it's your problem. But if they have expectation of you, that's completely their problem. It has nothing to do with you. They are going to have a lot of expectations out of life. The sooner you can dash their expectations, the better. Courage isn't charging into a machine gun. Last, courage is not caring what other people think. Anyone who has known me for a long time knows that my defining characteristics is a combination of being very impatient and willful. I don't like to wait. I hate wasting time. I'm very famous for being rude at parties, events, dinners, where the moment I figure out it's a waste of my time, I leave immediately. Value your time. It's all you have. It's more important than your money. It's more important than your friends. It's more important than your anything. Your time is all you have. Do not waste your time. It doesn't mean you can't relax. As long as you are doing what you want, it's not a waste of your time. But if you are spending your time doing what you want, and you are not earning and you are not learning, what the heck are you doing? Don't spend your time making other people happy. Other people being happy is their problem. It's not your problem. If you are happy, it makes other people happy. If you are happy, other people will ask you how you become happy, and they might learn from it. But you are not responsible for making other people happy. Freedom from anger. What is anger? Anger is way too singular to distort strongly, and you can to be other party. they are capable of violence. Anger is a precursor to violence. Observe when you are angry. Anger is a loss of control over the situation. Anger is a contract you make with yourself to be in physical and mental and emotional turmoil, turmoil until reality changes. Anger is its own punishment. An angry person trying to push you her hand below water is drawing at the same time. Freedom from employment. People who live far below their means enjoy a freedom that people busy upgrading their lifestyle can't fathom. 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 Once you truly control your own fate for better or for worse, you'll never let anyone else tell you what to do. A taste of freedom can make you unemployable. Freedom from uncontrolled thinking. A big habit I'm working on this is trying to turn off my monkey mind. When we are children, we are pretty blank states. We are like very much in the moment. We essentially just react to our environment through our instincts. We live in what I would call the real world. Puberty is the one onset of desire, the first time you really, really want something and you start long-range planning, you start thinking a lot, building an identity and an ego to get what you want. If you walk down the street and there are 1,000 people in the street, all 1,000 are taking to themselves in their hand at any given point. They are constantly judging everything they see. They are playing back movies of things that happened to them yesterday. They are living in fantasy world of what's going to happen tomorrow. They are just pulled out of the base reality. That can be good when you do long-range planning. It can be good when you solve problems. It's good for us and survival and replication machines. I think it's actually very bad for your happiness. To me, the mind should be a servant and a tool, not master. My monkey mind should not control and drive me 24 hours, 7 days. I want to break the habit of uncontrolled thinking, which is hard. A busy mind accelerates the passage of subjective time. There is no endpoint to self-awareness and self-discovery. It's a lifelong process. You hopefully keep getting better and better. And there is no one meaningful answer. And no one is going to fully solve it unless you are one of those enlightened characters. Maybe some of us will get there, but I'm not likely to, given how involved I'm in the rat race. The best case is I'm rat who might be able to look up at the clouds once in a while. I think just being aware you are a rat in a race is about as far as most of us are going to get. The modern struggle. Lone individuals summon inhuman willpower, fasting, meditating, and exercising up against armies of scientists and satisfactions, weaponizing abundant food, screens, and medicine into junk food. clickbait news, infinite porn, endless games, and addictive drugs. Philosophy, the real truth are happiness. They can't be spoken, only discovered, whispered, and perhaps read, whispered, and perhaps read. A really abundant big question. What is meaning and purpose of life? That's a big question. Because it's a big question, I'll give you three answers. Answer one, it's personal. You have to find your own meaning. Any piece of wisdom anybody else gives you, whether it's Buddha or me, it's going to sound like nonsense. Fundamentally, you have to find it for yourself. So the important part is not the answer, it's a question. You just have to sit there and dig with the question. It might take you years or decades. When you find the answer you are happy with, it will be fundamental to your life. Answer two, there is no meaning to life. There is no purpose to life. Also said, it's like riding on water or building houses of sand. The reality is you are being dead for the history of the universe. 10 billion years or more, you will be dead for the next 70 billion or so. So the heat death of the universe, until the heat death of the universe. Anything you do will fade, you will disappear, just like a human race will disappear and the planet will disappear. Even the group of colonized Mars will disappear. No one is going to remember you past a certain number of generations. Whether you are an artist, a poet, a conqueror, a pauper, or anyone else, there is no meaning. You have to create your own meaning, which is what it boils down to. You have to decide. If there's a play I'm just watching, is there a self-actualization dance I'm doing? Is there a specific thing I desire just for the heck of it? They are all meanings you make up. There is no fundamental, intrinsic purposeful meaning to the universe. If there was, then you would just ask the next question. You would say, why is that the meaning? Why is that the meaning? It would be a physicist, Richard Feynman said, it would be turtles all the way down. The whys would keep accumulating. There is no answer you could give that wouldn't have another why. I don't buy the everlasting afterlife answers because it's insane to me. Why absolutely no evidence to believe because of how you live 70 years here on this planet. You are going to spend eternity, which is a very long time, in some afterlife. What kind of a silly God just judge you for eternity based on some small period of time here? I think after this life, it's very much like before you were born. Remember that. It's going to be just like that. Before you were born, you didn't care about anything or anyone, including your loved ones, including yourself, including human beings, including whether we go to Mars or whether we stay on planet Earth, whether there's AI or not. After death, you just don't care either. Answer 3. The last answer I will give you is a little more complicated from what I've read in science. Friends of mine have written books on this. I've stitched together some theories. Maybe there is a meaning to life, but it's not a very satisfying purpose. Basically, in physics, the arrow of time comes from entropy. The second law of thermodynamics states entropy only goes up, which means disorder in the universe only goes up, which means concentrated free energy only goes down. If you look at living things, humans, planets, civilizations, what have you. These systems are locally reversing entropy. Humans locally reverse entropy because we have action. In the process, we globally accelerate entropy until the heat death of the universe. You could come up with some fanciful theory, which I like, that are headed towards a heat death of the universe. In that death, there's no concentrated energy, and everything is at the same energy level. Therefore, we are all one thing. We are essentially indistinguishable. What we do as a living system accelerates getting to that state. The more complex system you create, whether it's through computers, civilizations, art, mathematics, or creating a family, you actually accelerate the heat death of the universe. You are pushing us towards this point, where we end up as one thing. Live by your values. What are your core values? I've never fully enumerated them, but a few examples. Honesty, honesty is a core core value. By honesty, I mean I want to be able to just be me. I never want to be in an environment or around the people who I have to watch what I see. If I disconnected what I'm thinking from what I'm saying, it creates multiple threads in my mind. I'm no longer in the moment. Now I have to be future planning or past regretting every time I talk to somebody, everyone around whom I can't be fully honest. I don't want to be I don't want to be around. Before you can lie to another, you must first lie to yourself. Another example of a foundational value. I don't believe in any short-term thinking or dealing. If I am doing business with somebody and they think in a short-term manner with somebody else, then I don't want to do business with them anymore. All benefits in life come from compound interest, whether in money, relationships, love, health, activities, or habits. I only want to be around people I know I'm going to be around for the rest of my life. I only want to work on things I know have long-term payout. Another one is I only believe in peer relationships. I don't believe in hierarchical relationships. I don't want to be above anybody. I don't want to be below anybody. If you can't treat someone like a peer, or if they can't treat me like peer, I just don't want to be interact with them. Another, I don't believe in anger anymore. Anger was good when I was young and full of testosterone. But now I like the Buddhist saying, anger is hot coal, and hold in your hand while waiting to throw it at somebody. I don't want to be angry, and I don't want to be around angry people. I just cut them out of my life. I'm not judging them. I went through a lot of anger too. They have to work through it on their own. Go go be angry at someone else, somewhere else. I don't know if this necessarily fall into the classical definition of values, but it's set of things I once promised on and I lived my entire life by. I think everybody has values, much of finding great relationships, great co-workers, great lovers, wives, husbands, is finding other people where your values line up. If your if your values line up, the little things don't matter. Generally, I find if people are fighting or quarreling about something, it's because their values don't line up. If their values line up, the little things wouldn't matter. Meeting my wife was a great test because I really want to be with her. And she wasn't so sure at the beginning. In the end, we ended up together because he saw my values. I'm lucky I had developed them by that point. If I hadn't, I wouldn't have gotten her. I wouldn't I wouldn't have deserved her. As investor Charlie Munger says this, I have to find my a worthmate be worth of a worthmate. My wife is an incredibly lovely feminine oriented person. So am I. That was one of the foundational values that brought broad 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 bring brought us together. The moment you have a child, it's this really weird thing, but it answers the meaning of life, purpose of life question. All of a sudden, the most important thing in the universe moves from being in your body into the child's body. That changes you. Your value inherently become a lot less selfish. Partitional Buddhism. The older the question, older the answers. You've called your philosophy rational Buddhism. How does it differ from traditional Buddhism? What type of exploration did you go through? The rational part means I have to reconcile with science and evolution. I have to reject all the pieces I can't verify myself. For example, is meditation good for you? Yes. Is clearing your mind or a good thing? Yes. Is there a base layer of awareness below your monkey mind? Yes. All these things I've verified for myself. Some beliefs from Buddhism I believe and follow because again I've verified and reasoned with thought experiments myself. What I'll not accept is things like there's a past life you are paying off the karma for. I haven't seen it. I don't remember any past lives. I don't have any memory. You just have to not believe that. When people say your third uh, chakra is opening extra, I don't know. That's just fancy nomenclature. I have not been able to verify or confirm any of that on my own. If I can't verify it on my own, if I can't get there through science, then it may be true, it may be false, but it's not forcible. So I can't view it as a fundamental truth. On the other side, I don't know evolution is true. I don't know evolution is true. I don't know we are involved in survival and replication machines. I don't know we have an ego. I have an ego, so we get up off the ground and the worms don't eat us and we actually take action. Rational Buddhism to me means understanding the internal work. Buddhism Buddhism is to is supposed to make yourself happier, better off, more present, and in control of your emotions. Being a better human beings. I don't subscribe to anything festival because it was written down in a book. I don't think I can live it. I don't think meditation will give me superpower and those kind of things. And try everything. Test it for yourself. Be skeptical, keep what's usable and discard what not. I would say my philosophy boils down to this. On one pole is evolution as a blinding principle because it explains so much about humans. On the other on the other is Buddhism, which is the oldest, most time tested spiritual philosophy regarding the internal state of each of us. I think those are absolutely reconcilable. I actually want to write a blog post and some point about how you can map the tenet of Buddhism, especially the non-festival ones, directly into a virtual reality simulation. Everyone starts to out innocent. Everyone is corrupted. Wisdom is the discarding of vices and the return to virtue, 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 virtue to virtue by way of knowledge. How do you define wisdom? Understanding the long-term consequence of your actions. If wisdom could be imparted through words alone, would all be done here. The present is all we have. There is actually nothing but this moment. No one has ever gone back in time, and no one has ever been able to successfully predict the future in any way that matters. Literally, the only thing that exists is this exact point where you are in space and the exact point time you happen to be here. Like all great profound truth, it's all paradoxes. Any two points are not infinitely different. Any moment is perfectly unique. Each moment is itself slips by too quickly, you can't grab it. You are dying and being reborn at every moment. It's up to you whether to forget or remember that. Everything is more beautiful because we are doomed. You will never be lovelier than you are now. Will never be here again. I don't even remember what I said 2 minutes ago. At best, the past is some fictional little memory tape in my hand. As far as I'm concerned, my past is dead. It's gone. All that really means is that there are no more future moments. Inspiration is perishable and on it immediately. Bowlers. Lavos recommended reading. The truth is, I don't read for self-improvement. I read out of curiosity and interest. The best book is the one you will devour. Devour books. Since there are so many links in this section, you may prefer a digital copy. Go to Lavol.com to get digital version of the chapter for your convenience. Non-fiction, the beginning of infinite explanation of the transform the world by David Dashiell. Science is the best book of the last decade I've read. He had decades to write Spanish, and there are a lot of great ideas in there, and it's just full of them. Chock full per page. The Rational Optimist, How Prosperity Evolves by Matt Readney. The most brilliant and enlightened book I've read in years. He has written 4 of my top 20 books. Everything else written by Matt Readney. Matt is scientist, optimist, and forward thinker, one of my favorite author. I've read everything of this and reread everything of his. Skin of the Game by the best book I read in 2018. I highly recommend it. A lot of great ideas in there. Lots of good mental models and constructs. He has a bit of attitude, but he has that because he's brilliant, and it's okay. So just look past of the attitude and read the book. Learn the concept. It's one of the best business books I've ever read. And luckily, it doesn't mess and the business book. The bed of procurate philosophic, philosophy, philosophic, and the practical. This is his collection of ancient wisdom. He is also famous for The Black Swan, the impactful of improbable, highly improbable, improved anti-fragile, anti-fragile things that gain from disorder, and the food by randomness, the hidden role of chance in life and in market, all of which we are worth reading. 6 easy pieces. I would give my kid a copy of Rich Famous 6 easy pieces and 6 not so easy pieces. Einstein's relativity and space-time. Richard Feynman is a famous physicist. I love both his demeanor as well as his understanding of physics. I've also been reading Perfectly Readable Deviations from the Beaten Track by Feynman and reading The Life and the Service by Richard Feynman, a biography about him. Things explain complicated stuff in simple words. To get to a great book by a very science-oriented. In this book, he explains very complicated concepts as the way from climate change to physical system to submarines, while only using the 1,000 most common words in English language. He called the Santa 5 rocket up. You can define a rocket as a spaceship or a rocket. It's self-referential. He says go upward. It's this thing that goes up. Kids get it the right way. Thinking Physics, Understandable Practical Reality by Lewis. There's another great book called Thinking in Physics. I open this one all the time. I love on the back cover how he has this great little page that is the only book used in both grade school, grad school and graduate school, grade school and graduate school. It's true, it's all simple physics puzzles that can be explained to 12-year-old child and can be explained to a 25 years old grad student in physics. They all have fundamental insight in physics. They are all kind of tricky, but anyone can get the answer through purely logical reasoning. The Lesson of History by Will and Ariel Durant. This is a great book. I really like that summarize some of the larger themes of history. It's very incisive, and unlike most history books, it's actually really small. It covers a lot of ground. This this is the best book I've read since Spinning. Poor Charlie's Alm Alm Alman Almanac. The Wit and Wisdom of Charles. This is massacred by business book. It's really just Charles Munger advice on overcoming oneself to living a successful and virtuous life. This is the best book I've read in last year. Physics, poetry, philosophy, and history packaged in a very accessible form. 7 brief lessons on physics by Carlo Ravelli. I've read this one at least twice. For game theory, in addition to playing strategy games, you may want to try the complete strategist, being a primer on the theory of games of strategy by J.D. Williams, and the evolution of cooperation by Robert Alexi Nord. Philosophy and spirituality, everything by Jed McKenna. Jed speaks the raw truth. His style may be off-putting, but the dedication to truth is unparalleled. Theory of everything. The enlightenment perspective. Dream state trilogy. Everything by Kapil recently become a personal advisor and coach to me. And this comes from a person who doesn't believe in coach. A master secret whisperer whispers from those who noise and seek the truth about life and living. Direct truth, promising long perspective to the enduring question of life. The path to achieving the bliss of the Himalaya Swamis and the freedom of living God. The book by Judy Krishnamurti is a lesser-known guy, an Indian philosopher who lived at the turn of the last century and is extremely influential to me. He's an uncompromising, very direct person who basically tells you to look at your own mind at all time. I have been hugely influenced by him. Probably the best book is The Book of Life, which is excerpts from his various speeches and books stitched together. I'll give my kids a copy of The Book of Life. I'll tell them to save it until they are older because you won't make much things while they are younger. Total Freedom, an essential Krishnamurti by G. I like this because for someone who's more advanced, a rationalist guide to the perils of the human mind, the spiritual book I keep returning to. I love this as a classic book on philosophy, a good introduction for someone starting out. I've given out more copies of this book than any other. I'm pretty much always reading something by either or also, and those are my favorite philosophers. Now at Jed McKenna, Kapil Gupta, and the Vash Yogas, the Books of Secrets, 112 meditations to discover the mystery within by awesome. Most meditation techniques are concentration method, and there are many meditation techniques. If you want to run through a bunch of them, you can pick up a book called The Book of Secrets by Osho. I know he's gotten a bad rap recently, but he was a pretty smart guy. It's actually a translation of an old Sanskrit book by 12 different meditations. You can try each one and see which one works for you. The great challenge exploring the world theme, but also the way to love the last meditations, Anthony de Mello by Anthony de Mello. The untethered soul. The journey beyond yourself. Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. Marcus Aurelius was absolutely life-changing for me. It's a personal diary of the emperor of Rome. He's a guy who was probably the most powerful human being on earth at the time he lived. He's writing a diary to himself, never accepting it to be published. When you open this book, you realize he had all the same issues and all the same mental struggles. He was trying to be a better person. Right here, right there, you figured out success and power don't improve your internal state. You still have to work on it. Love yourself like your life depends on it by Kama Ravikant. It's actually been reading my brother's book, Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends on It. It's though it was very obviously a plug to my bro. He's a philosopher in the family. I'm just a amateur. He has a great line in his book. I once asked a monk how he found peace. I say yes, he said. To all that happens, I say yes. The Tao of Practical Leader from Stoical Master. My most listened to audiobook, the most important audiobook ever heard. How to Change Your Mind by Michael Pollan. There's a good book Michael Pollan wrote recently called How to Change Your Mind. And I think it's a brilliant book everybody should read. The book discusses psychedelics. Psychedelics was a bit of cheat code in self-observation. I don't recommend drugs for anybody. You can do it all through pure meditation. If you want to accelerate ahead, psyche are good for that. Striking Thought, Bruce Lee's Wisdom for Daily Living by Bruce Lee. Oddly enough, Bruce Lee wrote some great philosophy, and Striking Thought is a good summary of some of his philosophy. The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. This book reads like a modern-day poetic religious book. It's up there with the Dao De Jing, the Bible, and it's written in the style where it has a feel of religious truth, but it was very approachable, beautiful, non-dimensional, non-denominational, and non-sectarian. I love this book. He has a gift for poetry, poetically describing what children are like, what lovers are like, what marriage should be like, how you should treat your enemies and your friends, how you should work with money, what can you think of every time you have to kill something to eat. I felt it. Like the great religious book gave a very deep, very philosophic but very true answer to how to approach the major problems in life. I recommend the Prophet to anybody, whether you are religious or not, whether you are Christian, Hindu, Jewish, or atheist. I think it's a beautiful book. It's worth reading. Science fiction by I love by George Louis Borges. I love George Louis Borges. Borges, and the Argentine author. His short story collection, Fictiones Liberatis, is amazing. Borges is probably still the most powerful author I've read. Always wasn't just outright writing philosophy. There was philosophy in there with the sci-fi stories of your life and other by Ted Chiang. My current favorite sci-fi short story, probably Understand by Ted Chiang, who is a collection called Stories of Your Life and Others. Stories of Your Life is made into a movie called Arrival. Exhalation Stories by Ted Chiang. This is contemplate the marvel of thermodynamics from the best sci-fi short story writer of our age. The Life Cycle of Software Objects by Ted Chiang. Another masterpiece of sci-fi by Ted Chiang. Snow Crash by Leo Stephenson. Slow Crash is an amazing book. There's nothing quite similar to Snow Crash. Snow Crash is in a league of its own. Stephen also wrote The Diamond Age. The Last Question, a short story by Isaac Asimov. I quote The Last Questions all the time. I love it as a kid. What are the books you are rereading now? That's good question. I will pull up my Kindle app as we talk. Unusually, I'm always reading some books in science. I'm reading a book on Rene Girard's mimetic theory. It's more of an overview book because I couldn't make it through his actual writing. I'm reading Tools of Titans, Tim Ferriss' book of what he learned from a lot of great performers. I'm reading a book, Complexity. It's actually by a friend of mine, Vedant Mohit. I just finished reading Persuasion, a revolutionary way to influence and persuade, or I should say I just finished Scheming Persuasion by Robert Cialdini. I don't think I need to read the entire book to get the point, but it was still good to read what I did. It's a great little history book. I'm currently reading the story of philosophy, the lives and opinions of the great philosophers, and also by Will Durant. I have a young kid now, so I've got a lot of child reading books. I use more as reference material than anything else. I recently read my son Emerson and son Chesterfield. I have a Leo Tolstoy book here. Alan Watts, Scott Adams. I reread God's Debris recently. Tao Te Ching. A friend of mine is reading it, so I picked it up again. There's times I could go on and on. There's Litz's book here. There's the Undercover Economist, the Richard Bach book. There are some Jet McKenna books. A little Dale Carnegie in here. The Three-Body Problem, 执行流, Man's Search for Meaning, Victor Frank. There's a lot. Sex and Darwin. There's a lot of book out there. By the way, when I tell people what I'm reading, I skip 2/3 of my books. The reason I skip two-thirds is because they're embarrassing. They don't sound like good books to read. They will sound trivial or silly. Who cares? I don't have to tell everybody everything I read. I read all kinds of stuff other people consider junk or even reprehensible. I read all kinds of stuff I disagree with because they are mind bending. I always spend money on books. I never viewed that as an expense, as an investment to me. Blacks, since there are so many links to these sections, you may prefer a digital copy. Go to lavanandmark.com to get digital version of the computer for your convenience. Same amazing blogs out there. The Munger operation system, how to live a life that really works. Rules to live and prosper by. Even though I'm a very good writer and I've been writing a lot since I was young, I still opening up at the blog post and put it in the background any book I'm writing anything important. It's that good. I use it. I use it as my basic template for how to write well. I think about the title. The day you become a better writer. It's such a powerful title. It teaches you in one small blog post the importance of surprise, the importance of handlines, the importance of being brief and directed, not using some adjectives and adverbs, using active, not the passive voice extra. This one blog post right there will change your writing style forever if you put your ego down and absorb it properly. Want to become smarter in 10 minutes? Absorb this. Crony Beliefs by Kevin Simner. Best post ever read on career decisions. In Silicon Valley, every business school should have a course on R theories, aggregation theory, or learn it from the master himself, the best analyst in technology. Great grade quantum physics is not weird. You are weird. Think like reality. Must read. Low holds berry wisdom from self-made man. Everything on if you eat, invest, and think according to what the news and advocates, you will end up nutritionally, financially, and morally bankrupt. Other recommendations: Twitter account. Genius is here, just unevenly distributed. Must read Twitter. There actually some really good graphic novels out there if you are open to cartoony elements of it. Rick and Morty is the best shown on television. Just watch the first episode. It's back to the future meets the he Hitchhiker Guide to the Galaxy. The Rick and Morty comic is just as clever as the show. You and Your Research by Richard Hamming. A beautiful essay. I highly recommend reading it. It's ostensibly written for people who are in scientific research, but I think it applies across the board. It's just an old-timer essay on how to do great work. It reminds me of much of what Richard Feynman used to see, although I think Hamming has put it more eloquently than most everywhere else I've seen. Judgment. If you want to make the maximum amount of money possible, if you want to get rich over your life in a deterministically predictable way, stay on the bleeding edge of trends and study technology, design, and art, becoming really good at something. You don't get rich by spending your time to save money. You get rich by saving your time to make money. Hard work is really overrated. How hard you work matters a lot less in the modern economy. What is underrated? Judgment. Judgment is underrated. Can you define judgment? My definition of wisdom is knowing the long term consequence of your actions. Wisdom applied to external problems is judgment. They are highly linked. Knowing the long term consequence of your actions and then making the right decision to capitalize on that. In an age of leverage, one correct decision can win everything. Without hard work, you'll develop neither judgment nor leverage. You have to put in the time, but the judgment is more important. The direction you are heading in matters more than how fast you move, especially with leverage. Picking the direction you are heading in for every decision is far more important than how much force you apply. Just pick the right direction to start walking in and start walking. How to think clearly. Clear thinker is a better compliment than smart. Real knowledge is intrinsic. It's built from the ground up. To use math example, you can't understand trigonometry without understanding arithmetic and geometry. Basically, if someone is using a lot of fancy words and a lot of big concepts, they probably don't know what they are talking about. I think the smartest people can explain things to a child. If you can't explain it to a child, then you don't know it. It's a common saying and it's very true. Richard Feynman very famously does this in 6 easy pieces, one of his early physics lecture. He basically explains mathematics in 3 pages. He starts from the number 9, counting, and then he goes all the way up to pre-calculus. He just builds it up through an unbroken chain of logic. He doesn't really rely on any definitions. The really smart thinkers are click thinker. They understand the basics at very fundamental level. I would rather understand the basics really well than memorize all kinds of complicated concepts I can stitch together and can't derive from the basics. If you can't rederive concepts from the basics as you read them, you are lost. You are just memorizing. The advanced concepts in a field are less proven. We use them to signal insider knowledge, but with better off learning the basics. Clear thinker appeals to their own authority. Part of making effective decisions boils down to dealing with reality. How do you make sure you are dealing with reality when you are making decisions? By not having a strong sense of self and judgment or mind presence. The monkey mind will always respond with this regurgitated emotional response to what it thinks the world should be. Those desires will cloud your reality. Regurgitated. To bring swallowed food back up. Oh, regurgitated. regurgitated emotional response to what it thinks the world should be. Those desires will cloud your reality. This happens a lot of times when people are mixing politics and the business. The number one thing clouding us from being able to see reality is we have preconceived notions of the way it should be. One definition of a moment of suffering is a moment when you see things exactly the way they are. This whole time, you will become being convinced your business is doing great, and really, you've ignored the signs it's not doing well. Then your business fails, and you suffer because you have been putting off reality. You've been hiding it from yourself. The good news is the moment of suffering, the moment of suffering when you are in pain is a moment of truth. It's a moment where you are forced to embrace reality the way it actually is. Then you can make meaningful change to add progress. You can only make progress when you are starting with the truth. The hard thing is saying the truth. To say the truth, you have to get your ego out of the way because your ego doesn't want to face the truth. The smaller you can make your ego, the less conditioned you can make your reactions, the less desires you can have about the outcome you want, the easier it will be see the reality. What we wish to be true clouds our perception of what is true. Suffering is a moment when we can no longer deny reality. Imagine we are going through something difficult like a breakup, a job loss, a business failure, or a health problem, and our friends are advising us. When we are advising them, the answer is obvious. It comes to us in a minute, and we tell them exactly, "Oh, that girl, get over her. He wasn't too good for for you anyway. You will be happier. Trust me. We'll find someone." You know the correct answer, but your friend can't see it. Because you are in the moment of suffering and pain, they are still wishing reality was different. The problem isn't reality. The problem is their desire is colliding with reality and preventing them from seeing the truth, no matter how much you say it. The same thing happens when I make decisions. The more desire I have for something to work out a certain way, the less likely I'm to see the truth, especially in business. If something isn't going well, I try to acknowledge it publicly, and I try to acknowledge it in publicly in front of my co-founders and friends and co-workers. Then I'm not hiding it from anybody else. I'm not hiding it from anybody. I'm not going to delude myself from what's actually going on. What you feel tells you nothing about the facts. It merely tells you something about your estimate of the facts. It's actually really important to have empty space. It's actually really important to have empty space. If you don't have a day or two every week in your calendar where you are not always in meetings, you are not always busy, then you are not going to be able to think. You are not going to be able to have a good ideas for your business. You are not going to be able to make good judgment. I also encourage taking at least one day a week preferably two, because if you budget two, you will end up with one when you just have time to think. It's only after you are bored you have great ideas. It's never going to be when you are stressed or busy, running around or rushed. Make the time. Very smart people tend to be weird since they insist on thinking everything for themselves. A con a contrarian, a contrarian, contrary, contrary, con, contrary, contrarian, a contrarian, contrarian, contrarian. Sorry, I need to check. Contrarian. Country. Contrarian. 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 Contrarian isn't one who always objects that a conf, conf, conformist, contrarian, conformist, that's a conformist of different thought. A contrarian reasons independently from the ground up and resists pressure to conform. A conformist cynicism is easy, mimicry is easy, cynicism is easy, mimicry is easy, optimistic contrarian, optimistic contrarians are the rarest breed. Shed your identity to see reality. Our egos are contrasted in our formative years. Our first 2 decades, they get constructed by our environment, our parents, society. Then we spend the rest of our life trying to make our ego happy. We interpret anything new to our ego. How do I change the external world to make it more how I would like it to be? Tension is who you think you should be. Relaxation is who you are. Buddhist saying. You absolutely need habit to function. You cannot solve every problem in life as if it's the first time it's thrown at you. We accumulate all these habits. We put them in the bundle of identity, ego, ourselves, and then we get attached to them. I'm a Naval. This is the way I am. It's really important to be able to uncondition yourself, to be able to take your habits apart and say, okay, this is a habit I probably picked up when I was a toddler trying to get my parents' attention. Now I've reinforced it and reinforced it, and I call it part of my identity. Does it still serve me? Does it make me happier? Does it make me healthier? Does it make me accomplish whatever I set out to accomplish? I'm less habitual than most people. I don't like to structure my day To the extent I have habits, I try to make them more deliberate rather than accidents of history. Any belief you took in package is suspect and should be re-evaluated from base principles. Can I try not to have too much I've pre-decided. I think creating identities and labels locks you in and keeps you from saying the truth. To be honest, speak without identity. I used to identify as libertarian, but when I would find myself defending positions I hadn't really thought through because they are part of the libertarian canon. canon. If all your beliefs line up into neat little bundles, you should be highly suspicious. I don't like I don't like to self-identify on most any level anymore, which keeps me from having too many of these so-called stable beliefs. We each have a contrarian belief society rejects, but the more our own identity and local tribe reject it, the more real it likely is. There are two attractive lessons about suffering in the long term. It can make you accept the world the way it is. The other lesson is it can make you ego change in an extremely hard way. Maybe you are a competitive athlete and you get injured badly. Like Bruce Lee, you have to accept being an athlete is not your entire identity, and maybe you can forge a new identity as a philosopher. Facebook redesigns, Twitter redesigns, personalities, careers, and the team also need redesigns. There are no permanent solution in a dynamic system. Learn the skill of decision making. The classical virtue, the classical virtues are all decision making heuristics to make one optimize for the long term rather than for the short term. Self-serving conclusions should have a higher bar. I do build a lot of my goals over the next few years of unconditioning previous learned responses or habituated responses. So I can make decisions more clearly in the moment without relying on memory or prepackaged heuristics and judgment. Almost all biases are time-saving heuristics for important decisions. Discard memory and identity and focus on the problem. Radical honesty just means I want to be free. Part of being free means I can see what I think and think what I see. They are highly congruent and integrated. Theoretical physicist Richard Feynman famously said, "You should ever fool anybody, and you are the easiest person to fool. The moment you tell somebody something dishonest, you've lied to yourself. Then you'll start believing your own lie, which will disconnect you from reality and take you down the wrong road. I never ask if I like it or I don't like it. I think that's what is, or that's what it isn't, Richard Feynman. It's really important for me to be honest. I don't go out of my way volunteering negative or nasty thing. I would combine radical honesty with the old rule Warren Buffett has, which is pair specifically criticizing generally. I try to follow this. I don't always follow it, but I think I follow it enough to have made a difference in my life. If you have a criticism of someone, then don't criticize the person, criticize the general approach of, or criticize the class of activities. If you have to praise somebody, then always try to find the person who's the best example of what you are praising and praise the person, specifically them, people's egos and identities, which we will have don't work against you, they work for you. And any advice on developing capacity for instring, instinct, oh sorry, blunt honesty. I don't know the word. This word. Tell everyone, start now. You don't have to be blunt. Hey everyone, start now. I don't have to be blunt. Charisma is the ability to project confidence and love at the same time. It's almost always possible to be honest and positive. As an investor and CEO of Agilist, you're paid to be right when other people are wrong. Do you have a process around how you make decisions? Yes, decision making is everything. In fact, someone who makes decisions right 80% of the time instead of 70% of the time will be valued and compensated in the market bounds of times more. I think people have a hard time understanding a fundamental fact of leverage. If I manage 1 billion and I'm right 10% more often than somebody else, my decision making creates 100 million worth of value on a judgment call. With modern technology and large workforces and capital, our decisions are leveraged more and more. If you can be more right and more rational, you are going to get nonlinear returns in your life. I love the blog Farnham Street, Farnham Street because it really focuses on helping you be more accurate and overall better decision maker. Decision making is everything. The more you know, the less you diversify, collect mental models. During decision making, the brain is a memory this prediction machine, and now the way to do memory prediction is X happened in the past, therefore X will happen in the future. It's too based on specific circumstance. What you want is principle. You want mental model. The best mental models I have found came through evolution, game theory, and Charlie Munger. Charlie Munger is Warren Buffett's partner, very good investor. He has tons of great mental models. Author and trader Nassim Taleb has great mental models. Benjamin Franklin has great mental models. I basically load my head full of mental models. I use my tweets and other people's tweets as maximum that help compress my own learning and recall them. The brain space is finite. You have finite neurons, neurons, so you can almost think of these pointers, addresses, and mnemonics to help you remember deep-seated principle where you have the underlying experience to back it up. If you don't have the underlying experience, then it just reads like a collection of codes. It's cool. It's inspirational for a moment. Maybe you'll make a nice poster out of it, but then you forget it and move on. Mental models are really just compact way for you to record your own knowledge. Evolution. I think a lot of more modern society can be explained through evolution. One theory is civilization exists to answer the question of who gets to mate. If you look around from a purely sexual selection perspective, sperm is abundant and eggs are scarce. It's a collection of allocation problem. Literally, all of the works of mankind womankind can be traced down to people trying to solve this problem. Evolution, thermodynamics, information theory, and complexity have explanatory and predictive power in many aspects of life. Inversion, I don't believe I have the ability to see what's going to work. Rather, I try to eliminate what's not going to work. I think being successful is just about not making mistakes. It's not about having correct judgment. It's about avoiding incorrect judgment. Complexity theory. I read into complexity theory back in the Middle Ages, middle 90s. The more I got into it, the more I understand the limits of our knowledge and the limit of our prediction capability. Complexity has been super helpful to me. It helped me. It has helped me come to a system that operates in the face of ignorance. I believe we are fundamentally ignorant and very, very bad at predicting the future. Economics. Microeconomics is a game theory and fundamental. I don't think you can be successful in business or even navigate most of our modern capitalist society without an extremely good understanding of supply and demand, labor versus capital, the game theory, and those kind of things. Principal agent problem. To me, the principal agent problem is the single most fundamental problem in microeconomics. If you don't understand the principal agent problem, you will not know how to navigate your way through the world. It's important if you want to build a successful company to be successful in your dealings. It's very simple concept. Julius Caesar famously said, "If you want it done, then go, and if not, then send." What he meant was, if you want it done right, then you have to go yourself and do it. When you are the principal, then you are the owner, you care, and you will do a great job. When you are the agent and you are doing it on somebody else's behalf, and you can do a bad job. You just don't care. You optimize for yourself rather than for the principal's assets. The smaller the company, the more everyone feels like a principal. The less you feel like an agent, the better the job you are going to do, the more closely you can tie someone's compensation to the exact value they are creating. The more you turn them into a principal, and the less you turn them into an agent. I think I think at the core fundamental level, we understand this. We are attracted to principles and we are bound with principles. But the media and modern society spend a lot of time brainwashing you about needing an agent being important and the agent being knowledgeable. Compounding trust. Compounding trust, most of you should know it in the finance context. If you don't, crack open a microeconomics textbook. It's worth reading a microeconomics textbook from start to finish. And example of compounding interest, let's say you are earning 10% of a year on your $1. The first year you make 10% and you end up with $1.1. The next year you end up with 1.21 and the next year 1.31. It keeps adding more onto itself. You are on compounding at 30% per year for 30 years. You don't just end up with 10 or 20 times on your money. You end up with thousands of times your money. In the intellectual domain, compounding interest rules. When you look at a business with 100 users growing up at a compounded rate of 20% per month, it can very, very quickly stack up to having millions of users. Sometimes, even if the founder of these companies are surprised by how large the business scales. Basic math. I think basic mathematics is really underrated. If you are going to make money, if you are going to invest money, your basic math should be really good. You don't need to learn geometry, trigonometry calculus, or any of the complicated stuff if you are just going into business. But you want arithmetic, probability, and statistics. Those are extremely important. Crack open a basic math book and make sure you are really good at multiplying, dividing, compounding, probability, and the statistics. Black swans. There's a new branch of probability statistics, which is really around tail events. Black swans are extremely probabilities. Again, I have to refer book to Nassim Taleb. I think the one of the greatest philosophers, scientists of our time, has really done a lot of pioneering work on this. Calculus. Calculus is useful to know, to understand the rate of change and how nature works. It's more important to understand the principles of calculus, where you are measuring the change in small discrete or small continuous events. It's not important to use sub in integrals or do derivations on demand derivations on demand because you are not going to lead to in the business world. Forceability, least understand, but the most important principle for anyone claiming science undersigned. Falsifiability. Falsifiability. It's if it's in that doesn't make forcible predictions, it's not science. For you to believe something is true, it should have a predictive power, and it must be falsifiable. I think macroeconomics, because it doesn't make falsifiable predictions, which is hallmark of science, has become corrupted. You never have a counterexample when starting the economy, where you can never take the US economy and run two different experiments at the same time. If you can't decide, the answer is no. If I faced with a difficult choice, such as should I marry this person, should I take this job, should I buy this house, should I move to this city, should I go into business with this person? If you can't decide, the answer is no. And the reason is modern society is full of options. There are tons of options. We live on a planet of 7 billion people and we are connected to everybody on the internet. There are hundreds of thousands of careers available to you. There are so many choices. You are biologically not built to realize how many choices there are. Historically, we've all involved in tribes of 150 people. When someone comes around, they may be your only option for a partner. When you choose something, you get locked in. You get knocked in for a long time. Starting a business may take 10 years. You start a relationship that will be 5 years or maybe more. You move to a city for 10 to 20 years. The very, very long-lived decisions. It's very, very important. We only say yes when we are pretty certain. You are never going to be absolutely certain, but you are going to be very certain. If you find yourself creating a spreadsheet for a decision with a list of yes and no's, pros and cons, checks and balances, why this is good or bad, forget it. If you cannot decide, the answer is no. Run uphill. If you have two choices to make, and they are relatively equal choices, take the path more difficult and more painful in the short term. Simple heuristic: if you evenly split on a difficult decision, take the path more painful in the short term. What's actually going on is one of the paths requires short-term pain, and the other path leads to pain further out in the future. And what your brain is doing through conflict avoidance is trying to push off the short-term pain. By definition, if the two are even and one has short-term pain, the path has long-term gain associated with the lower compounded interest. Long-term gain is what you want to go toward. Your brain is overvaluing the side with the short-term happiness and trying to avoid the one with short-term pain. So you have to cancel the tendency out. If it's powerful subconscious tendency by cleaning into the pain, and most of the gains in life come from suffering in the short term so you can get paid in the long term. Working out for me is not fun. I suffer in the short term. I feel pain, but then in the long term, I'm better off because I have muscle or am healthier. If I'm reading a book, I'm getting confused. It's just like working out and the muscle getting sore or tired. Expect now my brain is being overwhelmed. In the long run, I'm getting smarter because I'm absorbing new text concepts from working at the limit of edge of my capability. Sorry. So you generally want to lean into things with short-term pain, but long-term gain. What are the most efficient way to build new mental models? Read a lot, just read. Reading science, math, and philosophy 1 hour per day will likely put you at the upper echelon of human success within 7 years. Learn to love to read. Specific recommendations for books, blogs, and more are in the above recommended reading section. The genuine love for reading itself, when cultivated, is a superpower. We live in an age of Alexandria, when every book and every piece of knowledge ever written down is a fingertip away. The means of learning are abundant. It's a desire to learn that is scarce. Reading was my first love. I remember my grandparents' house in India. I would be a little kid on the floor, going through all my grandfather's reading digest, which is all he had to read. Now, of course, there's a so sorry of information out there. Anybody can read anything all the time. Back then, it's much more limited. You would read comic books, storybooks, whatever I could get my head on. I think I always love to read because I'm actually an as to introvert. I was lost in the world of words and ideas from an early age. I think some of it comes from the happy circumstance that when I was young, nobody forced me to read certain things. I think there's a tendency among parents and teachers to say, oh, you should read this, but don't read that. I read a lot which, by today's standards, which be considered mental junk food. Read what you love until you love to read. You most have to read the stuff you are reading because you are into it. You don't need any other reason. There's no mission here to accomplish. Just read because you enjoy it. These days, I found myself reading as much as I do reading. A tweet from Yale Arcturus said, I don't want to read anything. I just want to read the 100 great books over and over again. I think there's a lot of to that idea. It's really more about identifying the great books for you because different books speak to different people. Then you can literally observe those. Reading a book isn't a race. The better the book, the more slowly you should be absorbed. I don't know about you, but I have my very poor attention. I skim, I speed read, I jump around. I could not tell you specific passages or quotes from books. At some deep level, you absorb them and they become thread, threads in the tapestry of your psyche. They kind of weaving there. I'm sure you've had this feeling where you pick up a book and start reading it, and you are like, this is pretty interesting, it's pretty good. You are getting this increasing sense of deja vu. Then, halfway through the book, you realize, I've read this book before. This is perfectly fine. It means you were ready to read it. I don't actually read a lot of books. I pick up a lot of books and only get through a few which form the foundation of my knowledge. The reality is I don't actually read much compared to what people think. I probably read 1 to 2 hours a day. That puts me in the top put 0.001%. I think that alone accounts for any material success I've had in my life and any intelligence I might have. Real people don't read an hour a day. Real people, I think, read a minute a day or less. Making it actually habit is the most important thing. It almost doesn't matter what you read. Eventually, you will read enough things, and your interest will lead you there, and you will dramatically improve your life. Just like the best workout for you is one you excited enough to do every day. I would say for books, blogs, tweets, or whatever, anything with ideas and information and learning, the best one to read are the ones you are excited about reading all the time. As long as I have a book in my hand, I don't feel like I'm wasting time. Charlie Munger. Everyone's brain works differently. Some people love to take notes. Actually, my note taking is Twitter. I read and read. If I have some fundamental aha insight or concept, Twitter forces me to distill it into a few characters. Then I try to put it out there, and then after them, then I get attacked by random people who point out all kinds of obvious exceptions and jump down my thought. Then I think, why did I do this again? Pointing out obvious exceptions implies either the target isn't smart or you aren't. When you first pick up a book, are you skimming for something interesting? How do you go about reading it? Do you just flip to a random page or start reading? What's your process? I'll start at the beginning, but I'll move fast. If it's not interesting, I'll just start flipping ahead, skimming or speed reading. If it doesn't grab my attention with the first chapter, in the meanwhile part of the way, I'll either drop the book or skip ahead a few chapters. The number of books completed is a validity metric. As you know more, you leave more books unfinished. Focus on more new concepts with predictive power. Generally, I'll skim it. I will fast forward. I'll try and find a part to catch my attention. Most books have one point to make. Obviously, that's in non-fiction. I'm not talking about fiction. They have no one point to make. They make it. and they give you example after example after example after example as they apply to explain everything in the world. Once I feel like I've gotten this case, I feel very comfortable putting the book down. There's a lot of this, and I would call pseudoscience bestsellers. People are like, "Oh, did you read this book?" I always say yes, but the reality is I read maybe 2 chapters of it. I got the gist. If they wrote it to make money, don't read it. What practice do you follow to internalize or organize information from reading books? Explain what you learned to someone else. Teaching forces learning. It's not about educated or uneducated. It's about likes to read and don't like to read. What can I do for the next 6 days to become a clear, more independent thinker? Read the great in math, science, and philosophy. Ignore your contemporary, contemporaries and news. Avoid tribal identification. Put truth above social approval. Study logic and math because once you've mastered them, you won't fear any book. No book in a library should scare you. Whether it's math, physics, electrical engineering, so, sociology, sociology, or economics book, you should be able to take any book down off the shelf and read it. A number of them are going to be too difficult to read. That's okay, read them anyway, then go back and reread them and reread them. When you are reading a book and you are confused, that confusion is similar to the pain you get in the gym when you are working out. But you are building mental muscles instead of physical muscles. Learn how to learn and read this book. The problem with saying The problem with saying just read is there so much junk out there. There are so many different kinds of authors out there. People, many of them are going to write a lot of junk. I have people in my life I consider to be very, very well read who aren't very smart. The reason is because even though they are very well read, they read the wrong thing in the wrong order. They started out reading a set of books or just weekly two things, and those formed of axioms of the foundation for their worldview. Then the new things come. They judge the new idea based on the foundation they already built. Your foundation is critical because most people are intimidated by math and can't independently critique it. They overvalue opinions backed with math, pseudoscience. When it comes to reading, make sure your foundation is very, very high quality. The best way to have a high quality foundation, you may not love this answer, but this trick is to stick to science and to stick the basics generally. There are only a few things you can read people don't disagree with. Very few people disagree 2 plus 2 equals 4, right? That is serious knowledge. Mathematics is a solid foundation. Similarly, the hard science are a solid foundation. Microeconomics is a solid foundation. The moment you start wandering outside of this solid foundation, you are in trouble because now you don't know what's true and what's false. I would focus more as much as I could on having solid foundations. It's better to be really great at arithmetic or geometry than to be deep into advanced mathematics. I would read microeconomics all day long, microeconomics 101. Another way to do Another way to do this is to read originals and read classics. If you are interested in evolution, Richard Darwin, don't begin with the Dawkins. Even though I think he's great, read him later. Read Darwin first. If you want to learn microeconomics, read Adam Smith, read, read von Mises, or read Hayek. Start with the original philosopher of the economy. If you are into communist or socialist ideas, which I'm not personally not, start reading Karl Marx. Don't read the current interpretation someone is feeding you about how things should be done and run. If you start with the originals and your foundation, then you have enough of worldview and understanding that you won't fear any book. Then you can just learn. If you are a perpetual learning machine, you will never be out of options for how to make money. You can always see what's coming up in society, what the value is, what the demand is, and you can learn to come up to speed. To think clearly, understand the basics. If you are memorizing advanced concepts without being able to derive them as needed, you are lost. We are now in a day and age of Twitter and Facebook. We are getting bite-sized pithy wisdom, which is really hard to absorb. Books are more difficult to read as a modern person because we've been trained. We have two contradict, contradictory contradictory pieces of training. One is our attention span has gone through the floor because we are hit with so much information all the time. We want to skip, summarize, and cut to the chase. Twitter has made me a worse reader but a much better writer. On the other hand, we are also taught from a young age to finish your books. Books are scared. When you go to school and you are assigned to read a book, you have to finish a book. Over time, we forget how to read books. Everyone I know is stuck on the same book. I'm sure you are stuck on something right now. It's page 334. You can't go for any further, but you know you should finish in the book. So what do? You give up reading books for a while. For me, giving up reading was a tragedy. I grew up on books, then I switched to blogs, then I switched to Twitter and Facebook, and I realized I wasn't actually learning anything. I was just taking a little dopamine slacks all day long. I was getting my little 140 character burst of dopamine. I would tweet, then look to see who retweeted my tweet. It's fun and a wonderful thing, but it's a game I was playing. I realized I had to go back to reading books. I knew it was a very hard problem because my brain had now been trained to spend time on Facebook, Twitter, and these other bite-sized pieces. I came up with this hack where I started trading books as throwaway blog posts and bite-sized tweets or posts. I've had no obligation to finish any book. Then, when someone mentions a book to me, I buy it. I buy it. And any given time, I'm reading somewhere between 10 or 20 books. I'm flipping through them. If the book is getting a little boring, I'll skip ahead. Sometimes I started reading a book in the middle because some paragraph caught my eye. I'll just continue from there. If I feel no obligation whatsoever to finish a book, all of a sudden books are back into my reading library. That's great because there is ancient wisdom in books. When solving problems, the older the problem, the older the solution. If you are trying to learn how to drive a car or fly a plane, you should read something written in modern age because the problem was created in modern age and the solution is great in the modern age. If you are talking about all the problems, like how to keep your body healthy and how to stay calm and peaceful, and what kind of the value system are good, how you raise a family, and those kinds of things, older solutions are probably better. Any book that survived for 200 years has been filtered through many people. The general principles are more likely to be correct. I wanted to get back into reading this sort of books. You know, that song you can't get out of your head. All thoughts worked that way. Careful what you read.